So I'm choked up right now, and I'm going to tell you why. Because you will meet Kellee Stewart, who's an actress, a producer, a writer. She's done so many things, but she's also a fertility advocate. And she came on here to talk about lots of things that are happening in the African American community and the BIPOC community in reproductive medicine and how to address some really important issues. And to my pleasant surprise, there's so much more. She talks about her feelings in pursuing fertility treatment. She talks about her sense of agency. She talks about ways to empower yourself. And she shows us another way of thinking about your future. Now, look, fertility treatment is hard for everyone. Parenting is hard. If you've gone through any difficult time, you will get so much out of this episode because she is so inspiring and she will show us how to open doors where we think that every door is closed. So please join us for this episode and also join us for the family building community. You will see a link down in the information and take a look at it. It's really wonderful. You will meet lots of people like Kellee and also receive enormous support. I'll see you inside. Welcome to Building Your Family. This is a podcast about fertility treatment, donor conception, surrogacy, and all the ways the modern family is built. My name's Lisa Schumann. I'm your host. I'm an author, a researcher, a licensed therapist, and the head of a new platform called Building Your Family as well, which I can't wait to tell you all about. But today, I'm going to tell you about what's most immediate and most dear to my heart, which is a person named Kellee Stewart, who you will meet in a second. She is so wonderful. And for several years now, I've been seeing her at events and wanted to have her onto this podcast. And she's been busy with so many wonderful things, but we finally got her here today. And I want her to talk to about things that are really important, things that are facing our community every single day, and things that you really need to know about reproductive care. She's an actress. She's a host. She's a producer. She's done so many wonderful things with her life and her career. But for us, it's really important for us to talk about her role as an advocate because she has been there for so many of us in so many circumstances, time and time again. So we're going to find out more about that now. Hi, Kellee. Thank you so much for joining us.
Hi, thank you for having me.
So tell us a little bit about what the audience needs to know about your history. Let's start there. How did you get involved in the world of fertility treatment? How did you become an advocate? And why is that so important to you?
Well, to start, I gave my best baby making years away to the wrong man, to the wrong relationship. And when that happened, I decided to freeze my eggs because I was 37 years old, but I was very naive to how my body actually worked. And the first time that I actually checked on my fertility was when that 7-year relationship ended. And I realized that not only did I give him my time and my energy, but I was giving away my biology. And I didn't quite know that that was the contract that I was signing. And so luckily for me, I was still in a very fertile state and I was able to freeze 29 eggs with
Wow.
one cycle of cryopreservation. And when I walked out of that experience, what really stuck with me was the fact that there were so many women that I know, and myself included, that really weren't being proactive about their fertility health and their family building plans. Being an actor and a writer and a producer, I was very focused on my career, and I don't dismiss that in any way. I don't regret it, but I kind of put the family building part to the side. And I realized that because we're born with as many eggs as we're ever going to have, that for somebody with ovaries, that's not necessarily an option. And so I wanted to start to advocate for people to educate themselves about their own fertility health if having a family was something that they wanted to do one day, or if they didn't know yet. And so I started becoming an advocate, to fully answer your question, by writing a movie called 29 Eggs, and I sold it to Lifetime Network. And I was very excited about the project because it was going to be chronicling how I froze my eggs, but I also wanted representation of people that did not want to have children, childless by choice community, as well as those maybe struggling on the path there. But COVID shut that movie down. And I did not want to stop advocating. And I started something called Warrior Wednesdays, which is a live interactive fertility show where I speak to patients and doctors and therapists like yourself about fertility health and being proactive. I did focus on the African American community and people of color because we are not talked about in the larger national conversation of infertility. And knowing that I had a platform, I wanted to speak to people that look like me so that they had somebody they could align with and identify with. Because when I froze my eggs, I was the only person I knew that did it. And I wanted people to see themselves in me as a means of inspiration for learning more about their fertility health.
That's amazing. There's so much there. So I guess I'm wondering, you're an actress and a writer and a producer, and you've done all these amazing things. And yet you were thinking, I'm not so sure that this is going to work with this guy, so I'll freeze my eggs. Were you thinking maybe then I'll make embryos, or maybe I'll wait for the right guy, or maybe I'll be a single mom? How is that decision tree working for you? Because it sounds like you have so many things going on in your life. And I know that a lot of people kind of grow up hearing about how not to get pregnant rather than how to get pregnant, or about our reproductive life. And that kind of probably hit you like a ton of bricks, thinking, oh my gosh, I've got to freeze my eggs. So how did you start to think about all these things? I'm with this guy. It's not going to work. I've got to freeze my eggs. Were you thinking, what's going to be next for me? Maybe I'll meet somebody later. What was going through your mind when all of this was kind of coming down on you?
Well, I mean, the first thing I was thinking was that I have this really unique opportunity. Egg freezing is not guaranteed, as you know, but I just wanted to make sure that I gave myself a pretty strong option to becoming a mother when I felt the time was right. I wasn't necessarily only thinking about when I find the right partner. That definitely was on my mind. I put them away for several reasons. Let's put them away so that I have the option for if I find the right partner, for if I decide to become a single mother by choice, for if I decide to donate them and I decide that having a child is no longer on the table for me. I kind of thought of all of the ways
Mm,
that preserving my fertility could benefit myself or even somebody else in the future. I just did not want it to be taken away from me. And I didn't want to be the person that took it away from me. So I don't blame that man in that relationship as to why I didn't take care of my fertility future. I wasn't taught to. I think we are taught sex education, but we're not taught reproductive health. And
yes.
so until we start to teach our communities at large, especially people that are born with as many eggs as they're ever going to have, that there is a timeline on those beautiful eggs and that there's underlying conditions that can affect the ability for those eggs to mature, that can affect the ability for you to carry a pregnancy. Until we start teaching that, then a lot of people are going to be in the same position that I was in, but they may not be in the position to do something about it. So that's why I wanted to talk out loud about this is what I did, this is how I did it. And the reasons were there was a multitude of reasons of why.
And so then as you're doing this, right, you're thinking all of these things, okay, maybe all of these things could be possible. And this is all new information, right? Because as you said, we don't grow up knowing these things. So you're thinking about all these possibilities and your career and all of the stuff going on in your life. Then you have to kind of go out into the community. And as you said, particularly the African American community, where again, there's not a lot of education about egg freezing and all of that and your reproductive health. So, what were you thinking was a really important part of that for you? Where do you think the stumbling blocks are in the BIPOC community?
Well, I think that there's disproportionate healthcare in this country as it relates specifically to fertility.
Hmm.
We can look at there's a lot of, fertility clinics out there that don't look for instance, egg donors that are African American
Right.
or sperm donors that are African American. There's less emphasis on serving Black women in the atmosphere of infertility, although we are diagnosed 3 times more with conditions that directly affect our ability to get pregnant and to carry a child to term, like fibroids or endometriosis or PCOS. So there's this whole community of millions of people of color that are statistically not included as much in this community. And you can also talk about that from a financial standpoint. You can talk about, those finances not being there because marginalized communities that don't have the same employment or don't have the same education, or there's a multitude of reasons, or just the way that people in this country sometimes devalue the experiences and the lives of Black women. The reality is we're here and we also suffer from infertility, and we
Mm-hmm.
deserve the same amount of attention and care. I will say that when I did freeze my eggs, I wasn't seeking out other fertility advocates because I did not even think they were in the space. Once I became an advocate myself, I was so glad to see people like Regina Townsend from Broken Brown Egg, or people like
Mm-hmm.
Camille Cade from the Cade Foundation. And, I was so glad to say, you mentioned Camille Guadi, who's Latina as well in the community, that with the influx of social media and the influx of more conversations around infertility, especially in this political landscape that we're living in now, that you do see, oh, we are out here, we are talking about it. So the good news is that people don't have to feel isolated in this space anymore.
Yes, 100%. But I still think that there is, as you said, a lack of education, right? And it's very possible that there are other people out there with ovaries who could be in a relationship and wake up one day and say, oh my gosh, I was focused on my career. I was focused on my life with my partner. And now I wake up and now I'm at kind of an advanced maternal age. And what do I do? And now I have to kind of go think about all the things that you outlined, single parenthood or freezing my eggs or freezing embryos and making those decisions. And then on top of that, as you're saying, you feel more marginalized if you're in the BIPOC community. So do you feel that makes it more difficult because there's more shame involved or more anxiety there or more lack of acceptance in some way?
Well, to your point, one of the things that I'll add or kind of bring to notice here, I'm a Black woman, as you know, and because we are discriminated against in the United States of America, there sometimes is a tendency to raise Black women to be independent, to go after their specific goals, to make sure you're able to take care of yourself. And with that teaching, you're not always taught to look for partnership in the romance lane or family planning as a part of that. It's kind of like an afterthought because you have to take
Mm,
care of yourself first, because this country is not going to take care of you.
mm,
I grew up in a household with an older brother. My parents are 81 years old. They've been married 56 years. So, as far as this country is concerned, my family would be looked at in terms of how it's made up. Its structure would be looked at as traditional.
mm-hmm,
But because I am a Black woman and this is a Black family, there is a certain amount of rearing that is done when you walk outside, you're going to be discriminated against. And I think because of that, I wasn't necessarily told to make space for the time to ask yourself the questions, do I want to be married? And do I want to have children? Because it was
mm,
more about surviving. And I think that that's something to learn from. I'm not going to say it's a mistake because I'm really, really happy with my life. And
mm-hmm,
because I'm really happy I became a successful actor and a writer and a producer and an award-winning fertility advocate. But I think what can now be learned from that is that culturally, we also have to give ourselves permission to instill in young people of color that you also have this amazing ability to create and build your own family, and don't
mm-hmm,
leave that off of the things to do. Don't let the world take that away from you. Don't let your need to survive stop you from seeking a certain type of family or romance, whatever that might be for you, however you define it, find the balance in both of those things. I think that's something that can be learned as I speak directly from my own experience, which I think there is a cultural undertone to that.
And do you see that happening? Are you seeing that there's more education happening and that people are receiving it well in the BIPOC community about this importance of thinking about? Because I know, I've been in this industry for years, and for years and years, there was so much difficulty just, for women in general to accept that their eggs get older. I used to work with a group that was called the American Fertility Association, and they bought billboards on buses saying, you've got to think about your reproductive life. And women got so upset and angry saying, I really need to take care of myself. I've got to go to school. I've got to get a job. I've got to do all these things. Don't tell me that I've got to do something else. I don't want to hear it. And it probably took another decade before I found that people were more accepting of it, kind of in general. And now, of course, we have social media, so people are telling their stories and it's different. So how do you feel like your community is receiving this information? Do you feel like progress is being made?
I do. I feel like every time somebody shares their story, they are inevitably going to be connected to hundreds of people that they don't even know are feeling empowered by that. I do feel like it is being absorbed. I think social media plays a very key role to be able to have your phone and be walking through the grocery store and to see, for instance, my show Warrior Wednesdays pop up, and I'm about to, interview a doctor, and specifically on my case, most times like a doctor of color, about fibroids, for instance. And it's like, whoa, I can, be shopping for pasta and learning about this at the same
Right.
time. And
It's amazing. Yeah.
I think that's quite brilliant. It's an opportunity for people to get, a 60-minute consultation with a doctor right there on their cell phone, or ask questions. So yeah, I
Hmm.
think that it is becoming absorbed, and I think that people are giving themselves permission to be more transparent about the things that happened to them in their past, or the way that they were taught, or the way the society around them influenced them, as to how that may have stopped them from maybe going after the family that they wanted. I think they're being more transparent about the steps to that, and therefore helping somebody else kind of see the signs of that before it actually seeps in. What I just said to you about how I was raised, I have heard several people say that before me. And each time I'm listening to that on a live, on a podcast, I'm screaming because I'm like, that's it. That's exactly what it was.
Mm.
My mom and dad did an amazing job. And I actually said it on a podcast, Trials to Triumph, with Ashley Blaine Featherston on the OWN channel. I literally had this conversation with her where I told her that my mom said to me, I told you to get an education, and I told you to go after your dreams, and to leave Pennsylvania and go to Los Angeles, and you did all these things. But now that you are single and still yearning for a family, I wonder, did I teach you wrong?
Oh.
First of all, the answer to that question is absolutely not. Mama Stu is a legend. Even in the
Uh-huh.
fertility community, they know her. But one of the things I told her is, if I did it the other way, maybe I would have married the wrong person. Maybe I didn't have the maturity to make the right choices. Because this is a show about family building, the beautiful thing about cryopreservation, about egg preservation, is that both things are still possible. I can freeze
Hmm.
my eggs and I can put them away, and I can still go after my dreams, knowing that I've given myself some sort of insurance policy so that I don't jump into the wrong thing too quickly, so that I do date with more intention. And I'll end this bit by saying that one of the things that was amazing for me personally, just to talk about how that cultural lesson is that when my mom froze my eggs with me, she flew out to LA, she gave me all the shots, all
Oh.
the things. And we're both terrified of the shots. If somebody should have had a camera on me back then, because it was hysterical. But I remember when I woke up after the procedure, I remember, you're foggy, you've been under anesthesia. And I was a very feisty patient. I asked a lot of questions of the doctor, and I never stopped asking, even when they were putting me under. And so when I
Mm.
woke up, he said, "Man, she's a feisty one. She just won't shut up." And my mom said, "Who are you telling?" Because if they had this procedure in my day, her ass would still be frozen. And even though it was this
Wow.
adorable joke that my mom told,
Wow.
right, I went home and I remember I thought about the fact that this was not available to her. It was a whole different time where going to college was about finding your mate, not necessarily about getting that education. It was about come home with, yeah, the books and the husband. Whereas
Wow.
for me, my mom get to taught me to go soar and fly and spread my wings. Now, maybe part of that conversation that was missing was, and if you want to have a child one day, you can do that with or without a partner. That's the part that was missing, right? But that
Mm-hmm.
wasn't her generation. So it's my turn to teach the future generation, hey, by the way, when you're doing that, you can also do this. And I really got that from my mom's one sentence that if it was available to her, she would have used it. And I thought that that was so profound. And that's why I said
Wow.
to her, no, mom, you raised me right. And luckily, I was brought up in a time where this is available to me. So two things can be true.
That's incredible. I have to say, Kellee, that as I'm listening to you, it is just remarkable how positive you are and how optimistic you are about this world, right? I think it's so, from my perspective, when I look at what's happening in our reproductive world. Yes, all these great things are happening, but I do think that there is still so much work to be done for not just the African American community, but the entire BIPOC community, right? You have so many people who can't get eggs or sperm, as you said, that feel uncomfortable in their doctor's office, that don't feel like they're represented. There's so many things come, and people tell me that they feel that there's this issue with men, that men feel that they really don't want to give their sperm sometimes because they feel like if they do, then they're kind of empowering these women who are not going to marry them anyway. And, all of these things, there's all this noise out there about all the things that are wrong. And I think that's probably true. And I'd love to hear your perspective. But what I'm also so struck by is how positive you are and how optimistic you are about all of these things and how you can kind of take, lemons and make them into lemonade.
Well, I think that that's a very important key to get through life, really. If you dwell in the past or the things that didn't happen for you yet, or maybe my parents should have taught me a different way, if I dwell in that, then I just become a victim twice, so to speak, or I re injure myself, so to speak. I
Hmm.
think that we have to feel what we feel and validate that. But then we also have to give ourselves permission to make a different choice. When I was in my 7-year relationship, I thought I was making the right choice. And when that ended and I realized this was not the right choice for me, he's not going to marry me. He's not going to be the father of my children. In fact, he's been cheating on me for years and I didn't even know it. When I realized all of that, I had two options. I can succumb to it and say, well, I waited too long. It's over for me. I'm 37 years old. My eggs are probably going to be dried up. Or I could call my OBGYN and ask them for a referral for a fertility specialist. I chose option two. And I chose to take back the years that I gave him. I started this interview by saying I gave away my best baby making years to the wrong man. He didn't take them. He did not take them. I gave them away because I didn't have the education about just how precious those years were. And that is why I speak up. That is why I became an advocate, is because I wanted people like my niece or my neighbor or someone that's following me on Instagram to not blindly give away their biology or their time without fully thinking through what that means. So I do think that, life is going to life. It's going to happen. But whatever circumstances you're in, there's almost usually, if not all the time, more than one way to respond to it, not react, but to respond to it. You can either succumb to it or you can make a choice that empowers you to live a bigger, fuller life. And for
Mm.
me, egg freezing is so much more than about waiting to find the right partner. That's why I answered the question earlier the way that I did, because that is it's true for a lot of people, and I understand it, and I cheer it on, but it's almost a really futile way of kind of thinking about this kind of miracle thing that exists for us, in the sense that it makes things much more limitless. And it's so much more than finding a relationship. I remember after I froze my eggs, my very sweet friend Shannon Chavers called me because she was about to go through her second round of radiation, and she had colon cancer. And they
Wow.
told her before she started, she would need to freeze her eggs in order to possibly have children should she survive. And we were supposed to have lunch that day, and she called to cancel because they sent her to fertility specialists. They gave her a video to look for and some menopur and some shots and said, you have to do this now, go home, see if you want to do it. And she was crying. And I hadn't told her or anybody that I froze my eggs yet. And I said, we're not going to lunch, but I'll be right over to give you that shot. Because now this thing that I did for myself was something that I needed to do for her. Even in the state that her body was in, she was able to retrieve 5 eggs. So now she had 5 little reasons to fight for her life.
Mm.
Egg
Wow.
freezing and the ability to do this is so much more than a failed relationship or I want to travel more. For some of us, it is the hope that we need if we're battling a disease or if a parent is battling an illness. It provides something bigger than just I put them away. Sometimes it provides the actual hope that you need to wake up every day. And
Wow.
in her case, it did. Yeah.
That's incredible. This is amazing, Kellee. I'm really so struck by how you're able to be so optimistic and also be able to look at life in a way that is empowering, right? Because lots of people out there, and I'm sure you see it on social media, and, I'm not just talking about the BIPOC community, but yes, everywhere. There's a lot of angry voices, right?
Mm-hmm.
If there's injustice, if there's disappointment, if there's sadness, if there's lack of education, if there's mistreatment. And somehow there's this belief, I think, very often that if you're not angry and you're not, screaming, out into the streets, nothing will happen. And it sounds like you're able to kind of uplift your community instead of getting out there like screaming in an angry way, you were uplifting your community. And that's really the way that you manage your advocacy, it sounds like.
It is. And that's not to say that I'm not screaming before I get online to try to find a way to uplift. I do.
Yeah. You're
I do have,
human.
I
Yes.
do. I'm human. I have my moments. I have a couple of reels out
Hmm.
there where I am, very strongly, especially with the election season that we were just in, voicing my opinion and having
Hmm.
to go to a comment section full of, hatred and
Oh, God.
judgmental comments. But I say that to say that you have to find the balance and you have to, I think empowering yourself is another form of self-care. You have to look at it that way. I believe because, going to the spa or getting enough rest or going to work out and drink a lot of water is a form of self-care. And so is learning the
Yes.
skill of how to empower yourself. It's not something that comes to me naturally. It's something that I have to practice every time life pushes me up against a wall. I
Wow.
have to practice the ability to have my reaction
Mm-hmm.
to be in my feelings, angry, as you said, sad, grief, whatever that might be, and then take that reaction and make it a response to an action that I can take to better my life in the direction that I want to go. And it's something that I find to be a form of self-care for Kellee. And if I can offer that, especially to a community of infertility, then that's something I'm going to do. I'll briefly just tell you a way that I found to do that in this space
Mm-hmm.
with my partnership with Evite. When I froze my eggs, and because it was such an isolating experience, I did want to tell my family other than my mother who froze with me. And so I threw myself an egg shower because I was just freshly coming off of a breakup. So I was crying while my feet were in those stirrups with the doctor in between, my
Mm-hmm.
thighs. I was lonely. I was scared. I didn't know any other Black girls that had done this. And I thought to myself, I don't want this experience to be filled with breakup trauma. I need to do something to get that part out of it. And so I was like, some girls, when they go through a breakup, they change their haircut, they
Yeah.
buy new outfits, they do that
Yes.
thing. I'm
Mm-hmm.
throwing an egg shower. So that's what I'm
Wow.
going to do. So I threw an egg shower at home in Pennsylvania with my family. And I explained to them what this was because I knew, other than my mom, that none of them really heard of it. They really didn't understand it all.
Did they say you were like, this was, what are you doing? Why are you doing this? Did anyone like,
No, they were amazingly supportive. I have a
that's
pretty
great.
awesome extended family. They were amazingly supportive, and I very rarely run into somebody that's not. But the next question that would come was, okay, well, when are you going to use them? And that's when I learned in that moment that that's not what you ask somebody, that you never know what they're going through. You never know if they even have that plan yet or that money yet. And that's when I learned to like, no, I can empower myself and I can celebrate it and it can stop there. When I go to a baby shower, I don't say, well, where are you going to send the kid to school? I just give you the stroller and I
Right.
celebrate you,
Right.
and I don't interrogate you about how you're going to raise your kid. So don't interrogate
Yes.
me about the eggs. But I learned in that through that party that I can celebrate my journey, not just the destination. And so I went to Evite, which is the largest online invitation platform, and it serves over 100 million users. And I pitched to them creating a new category of invitations that would serve people like me and the
Hmm.
infertility community. And they said, yes, we thought we had every party in the world covered, but tell us more. And so we created something called Parenthood Journey, where there's IVF showers, surrogacy showers, adoption showers,
Nice.
rainbow baby showers, and egg showers. And I designed my own invitation. And it was really important to me that it did not exist in the baby shower category, but that it was on its own to serve people that are still on the journey, whether that
Mm.
was through infertility or whether that was for they were pausing it or they were freezing eggs like me. And I worked also with Rebecca Flick from Resolve. And I called
Mm-hmm.
her and I said, I need your help because I want to make sure as we build this category that the languaging around it is proper. I want to be sensitive to the multitude of journeys that are out there. And
Mm-hmm.
also, to your point earlier, empowering. I wanted to be inspiring. I wanted them to feel permission to celebrate their journey, not just the destination. And I wanted them to see themselves that this was a different way that I can approach this journey that I'm on. So we launched it 2 years ago during National Infertility Awareness Week.
Wow. That is
Hmm.
fantastic.
Yeah,
That's brilliant.
thank you.
And it is so emblematic of everything we're talking about today, Kellee, because this it really mirrors the way that you see the world. And I think you're such an amazing gift to your community because, you're out there every day on social media talking about all of these things and you're, a breath of fresh air. The way that you talk about all of this, it's really, really so beautiful. And I so appreciate it. And I'm sure everybody out there is feeling all choked up, just like I am right now, because
Thank you.
it's beautiful. And I really appreciate everything that you're sharing. as we're winding down, do you have any other words of advice or things that we should be talking about on this platform?
I would say stay imaginative about how to build your family, stay encouraged, stay inspired, and stay around people that speak into your listening. I think it's really important that we know our own language as we're building family, especially if there are roadblocks or challenges to that, that stay around people that speak into your listening that make you feel uplifted. And if someone is speaking to you in a way that makes you feel like it's too late, it's over, oh well, that's not your person. If this is something that you desire, and as I would put it, if God put it in your heart, then there is a way, some way. So keep going.
I'm with you 1,000% on that,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
That is wonderful. It is all of our missions to be the best person we can be for ourselves, be all our true selves, as Oprah would say. One of
Yes.
my favorite quotes, we really need to be our fullest extension of ourselves. And you are doing just that every single day, Kellee. And I'm so grateful to have you here. So thank you for coming.
Thank you, Lisa. And I'll see you at Night of Hope in New
I
York
will,
City. I'll see you at
yes,
the
I will see
next,
you.
I'll see you at the next fertility gala doing
I
our
will see
thing.
you.
And thank you for every single thing that you do and every episode that you create to continuously deposit hope into this community. So kudos to you. And I'm honored to be your guest. And I'm honored that you stayed on me through my busy schedule and that we finally got to have this chat. Truly.
Well, it was so well worth it. I'm so grateful and so glad you're here and so excited to see you. I'm sorry I didn't get to see you at ASRM, but I'm glad I'll see you at Night of Hope. And can you share with the audience where people can reach you, what your handle is on social media, how they can find you?
Sure. The website is www.warrior-wednesdays with an S.com, warrior-wednesdays.com to look at all of the episodes I've done on Warrior Wednesdays, but you can also find them on Instagram. My handle is at KStew222, which is KSTEW 222. And you can also find me on Facebook with my name, Kellee Stewart, spelled KELLEESTEWART. But I'm out there.
Great. Well, I hope you all have written that down because, as you can see, she is a ray of sunshine and will help uplift you no matter what you're going through. And certainly, I think that everything that she's saying today is so important to really, really take stock of no matter where you are in your journey. There are other avenues. When we think a door is closed, there's just another one down the road, and we really need to kind of keep that hope. And that's everything that Kellee is all about. And so I hope you visit her and take advantage of those Wednesday events because that is such a gift. So thank you, Kellee, and thank you all for being here. And I will see you next week. Hi, it's Lisa Schumann. I hope that you enjoyed that video and I hope it helped you. And if it did, please give us a thumbs up and subscribe because that's how we keep going. It's really important to us. And if you liked it, you might like this one.